In the chill dawn near the Eastern Front, a Tiger tank crew prepared for battle under heavy sky and brittle silence. A miscalculation in shell loading sent a single case flying, its force shattering the tank's famed armor, altering the fragile balance of duty and survival in that frozen moment. Summer 1943, the fields near Kursk stretched wide beneath a heavy sky, thick with dust and the sharp scent of cordite. The air vibrated with the deep, steady roar of a German Tiger tank, its steel plates gleaming dull gray in fleeting shafts of sunlight. On the Eastern Front's battered terrain, this machine was a moving fortress, a symbol of power that dominated the battlefield's noise and chaos. Soviet artillery crews crouched behind earthworks, their faces smeared with grime and sweat, hands trembling slightly as they loaded shells into the barrels of their guns. The shells varied. Some were standard rounds, meticulously produced, others rougher, improvised attempts to counter the armored menace. Behind them, the dull thunder of distant explosions underscored the tension tightening in the air. Each man knew the stakes were unforgiving. One loader, muscles taut and breath shallow, struggled with a shell case that seemed too full, its weight awkward in his grasp. His fingers brushed the cold metal as he forced it into the breech, the effort leaving a sheen of sweat on his brow. The commanding voice above barked sharp orders, carrying over the clatter of engines and the hiss of spent shells hitting the ground. Dust rose in slow columns, caught in beams of sunlight breaking through ragged clouds. Around the towering Tiger tank, other vehicles rumbled, their engines churning dark smoke into the air. Soldiers nearby exchanged quick glances, some hardened, others wary. The legend of the Tiger's invincibility pressed on their minds relentlessly. Yet beneath the armor and firepower there were men, round-faced, scared, resolute, breathing heavily, waiting for the next moment when fate might claim them. In that charged silence, the battlefield seemed to hold its breath between the thunder of gunfire and the distant crackle of radio chatter. The myth of the Tiger tank was not just metal and machine. It was a test of endurance, courage, and the fragile will of those who faced it. Dim light filtered through the narrow slit of the dugout, casting long shadows across stacked sandbags and scattered equipment. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and machine oil. Ivan crouched near the artillery piece, his hands trembling as he wiped a smear of dark oil from his palms onto his threadbare uniform sleeve. Outside, muffled sounds stirred the cold morning silence, a distant rumble growing steadily louder. Ivan's breath was shallow, his eyes fixed on the cramped interior where the heavy shell cases were piled unevenly. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down as acutely as the metal in his hands. A sharp bark cut through the air. The officer's voice was urgent, rough from hours of strain. "Faster, we have no more time." The words snapped Ivan's attention away from his own shaking fingers. He nodded silently, swallowing the lump rising in his throat. He reached out and grabbed a shell case, its weight heavier than expected. The metal box strained against his grip, the edges biting into his palms. There was no time to question the burden, no moment to refuse. The seconds slipped away, relentless and unforgiving. The cramped space amplified every sound. The scrape of metal, the dull thud of heavy boots moving outside, the clatter of gear as the crew prepared for what was coming. Ivan shifted the shell toward the breech, muscles tensing to control the cumbersome load. His heart pounded, each beat echoing in his ears louder than the approaching engines. Outside, the low growl of tanks grew nearer, their presence a looming shadow beyond the fragile safety of the dugout. The crew caught each other's eyes, silent acknowledgement passing between them like a wordless prayer. Rushed orders fell in clipped bursts, the tension unspooling in the confined space. The loader's hands were slick with sweat, the cold metal of the shell slick beneath his grip. He forced himself to steady his breathing, to focus on the precise movements demanded by the gun's mechanism. The shell slid forward, imperfectly balanced but secured enough. Ivan's fingers found the levers, pushing the heavy breech open with a grunt of effort. Dust motes stirred in a stray beam of light, hanging briefly before settling again. Outside, the growl of engines was now a low roar, shaking the ground beneath the dugout. The air was charged, thick with anticipation and the faint tang of burning fuel. The loader's shoulders burned with exertion as he slammed the breech shut, the metallic clang resonating through the quiet tension. The gun commander's eyes were sharp, scanning the faces of his men before giving the single command that held the weight of survival. Fire! A deep, thunderous boom broke the stillness, the artillery gun recoiling under the force. The shockwave rattled the earth, and dust fell from the ceiling of the dugout. Ivan's ears rang, his body tensed against the sudden violence of the moment. Outside, the tanks surged forward, their engines blending with the echo of the gunfire. The crew exchanged a brief glance, the faintest trace of grim resolve passing between them. The loader's breath came ragged, sweat mingling with the dirt on his face. For a moment, the world narrowed to the space between blasts, the rhythm of duty overriding fear. Each man carried the weight of loyalty in his stance, an unspoken vow held tight beneath the roar of battle. The artillery crew braced themselves, ready to repeat the cycle as the front moved relentlessly onward. The Tiger tank rumbled forward, its massive tracks grinding against frozen earth and scattered stones. Slow, deliberate, it moved through the gray morning, a steel colossus cutting a path across the battered landscape. The commander's head emerged from the open hatch, his helmet rim catching the weak sunlight. His eyes scanned the horizon, steady and alert beneath sharp brows. Around him, the cold air hung heavy, carrying the scent of diesel and cold metal. Inside the cramped turret, the crew settled into their routine, the vibration of the engine thudding through their boots. The gunner's hands rested lightly on the aiming apparatus, fingers twitching with anticipation. The loader shifted the weight of a heavy shell, muscles tense yet accustomed to the effort. The radio operator leaned close to the receiver, eyes narrowing as he tried to catch a clear signal amid the static crackle. Their voices broke the silence in low, matter-of-fact tones. The commander threw a glance toward the loader. "Those Soviet shells bounce off like stones on the street, don't they?" he said, a faint edge of dry humor in his voice. The loader chuckled softly, adjusting the shell in his grip. "We'll see if the luck holds today," he replied, a brief smile creasing his worn face beneath the grime. The radio hissed again, a burst of static cutting through the cabin's dim light. The operator's fingers moved swiftly over the dials, catching the clipped commands from headquarters. The voice crackled, distant and urgent, transmitting orders to hold position and prepare for incoming reconnaissance reports. Then the silence returned, broken only by the faint whir of machinery and the soft clatter of shifting gear. The gunner pressed his eye to the sight, scanning the horizon beyond the battered trees and broken roads. The landscape lay still, shrouded in a pale fog that blurred the edges of ruined buildings and shattered vehicles. Suddenly, a flash flickered in the distance, a brief flare of light against the dull sky. The gunner's breath caught, but then released in a short laugh. "False alarm," he said, shaking his head. "Just a tracer round, no more than a flare in the dark." The tank's steel walls enclosed them in a cold but reliable shell. The thick armor, layered and heavy, absorbed the chill and the threat alike. It was a fortress on tracks, a metal shield against the unpredictable fury outside. Each rivet and plate bore silent testimony to battles fought and survived, the weight of countless impacts held tight in cold embrace. Behind the gunner, the commander reached into his pocket, pulling out a small tin of cigarettes. He passed one to the loader, who accepted with a nod. A match flared briefly, casting flickering shadows on their faces as the cigarette lit. Smoke curled upward in thin tendrils, filling the cramped space with a familiar, sharp scent. The quiet moment was a brief respite, a shared ritual within the confines of war. Outside, the world remained tense and expectant. The distant sounds of artillery echoed faintly, a low rumble beneath the frozen wind. The anticipation was tangible, each second stretched tight like the spring of a loaded trap. The shell they carried was already in flight somewhere beyond the horizon, invisible but deadly. Yet within the tank, the crew held to their routine, bound by training and trust in their armor. The commander's gaze returned to the horizon, eyes narrowing against the dim light. The tank rolled on, a slow advance measured by steel and will. The crew knew the danger waiting beyond every rise and every shadow. But they also knew their place, guardians behind iron walls, moving forward with quiet resolve. The world outside might blaze with fire and noise, but inside the tank, there was only the steady rhythm of duty and the muted murmur of brotherhood. The heavy Soviet shell thundered from the gun barrel, the recoil jolting the entire anti-tank gun forward. Ivan's shoulders jerked sharply as the blast slammed into the confined wooden dugout. The acrid smell of burnt powder filled the air, mixing with the damp earth and cold morning fog. His ears rang violently, muffling all other sounds to a distant hum, while shards of dust and splinters floated down from the ceiling beams. For a brief, suspended moment, the silence that followed felt almost unreal. Then, far ahead beyond the shattered tree line, a harsh, shattering explosion ruptured the stillness. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and a deep, distant roar echoed across the frozen fields. The crew scrambled to the narrow slit window in the dugout wall, their bodies tense, faces grim beneath their woolen caps. Through the thick glass of the binoculars, Ivan saw it, a dark plume of smoke curling and rising from the side of the massive German Tiger tank. The smoke was dense and black, curling over the battered metal plates like a ragged banner. Ivan's hands trembled uncontrollably, the cold seeping through his gloves, mixing with sweat and grime. His breath came shallow and fast, a tightness gripping his chest. Relief and dread warred inside him. The tank, a towering beast they all feared, appeared wounded but not yet defeated. The shell had found its mark, yet he could not say if it had stopped the threat. The battlefield air was thick with the metallic tang of spent shells and the distant rattle of machine gun fire. The sergeant, standing rigid beside him, barked sharply, "Load another shell, quickly now." His voice was harsh, brittle with tension, pushing the men to maintain the rhythm of battle. The other crew members moved with practiced urgency, their faces pale and drawn in the gray light. But Ivan remained frozen, eyes fixed on the smoke rising from the enemy tank's hull. The weight of what he had done pressed down on him, heavier than the gun's steel barrel. Behind him, the clatter of ammunition and the thud of heavy shells being rammed into the breach echoed hollowly. The sergeant's commands cut through the fog, a relentless drumbeat demanding focus amid chaos. But Ivan's gaze did not shift. His hands hung limply at his sides, still trembling, the gunpowder residue smeared across his knuckles. The knowledge that his shot had pierced the enemy machine, threatening lives on both sides, unsettled him deeply. Around the dugout, the muted sounds of war persisted. Distant artillery thumping, sharp orders shouted across fields, the occasional crack of rifle fire. The sky was a dull, overcast gray, casting a bleak light over the frozen mud and shattered trees. Ivan strained to see any movement from the tank, searching for signs that the battle was truly turning. The black smoke curled higher, a grim signal of damage inflicted but no guarantee of victory. A faint metallic clang sounded from the gun's breech, as another shell was slid into place. The sergeant glanced sharply at Ivan, his eyes narrowing with impatience and unspoken question. "Are you with us, comrade?" he demanded, voice low but urgent. Ivan wiped his damp brow, forcing himself to nod, though his heart pounded unevenly. The moment of hesitation was a luxury they could not afford. The others moved swiftly to prepare the next shot, their movements automatic yet burdened by the weight of survival. The cold seeped into their bones, but adrenaline pressed them forward. Ivan's mind, however, lingered on the plume of smoke, on the lives aboard that tank, on the fragile line between duty and fear. The recoil of the gun still echoed in his limbs, a physical reminder of the violence unleashed. Outside, the landscape remained silent, except for the intermittent sounds of war. A chill wind swept through the shattered branches, carrying with it the faint scent of burnt oil and scorched earth. Ivan's breath clouded in the cold air, a visible reminder of life amid destruction. His eyes, locked on the enemy tank's wounded form, reflected a mixture of disbelief and grim resolve. The war was far from over, but for a fleeting moment the damage had been done. The sergeant's voice cut sharply through the quiet again. "Steady, comrades." "We hold this line." The words were both command and reassurance, anchoring the crew in the storm of uncertainty. Ivan's fingers finally tightened around the cold metal of the gun's handle. The next round would be fired soon, another chance to defend, another test of loyalty. Yet beneath the orders and the noise, an unspoken weight hung in the air, the cost of duty carved in smoke and steel. The interior of the Tiger tank was a confined chaos of metal, oil, and heat. The cramped space, once a place of calculated precision, instantly became a maelstrom. The sudden impact of the shell tore through the front plate with a thunderous roar that rattled every bone inside. Steel fragments tore through the air, slicing through instruments, wiring, and flesh alike. The driver sat rigid, one arm limp at his side, his helmet stained with a darkening smear of blood. His eyes glazed over, unseeing beneath the cracked visor. Nearby, the loader's scream broke the heavy air, raw and desperate. He clutched his forearm, where a jagged piece of shrapnel had torn through the fabric of his uniform, and the flesh beneath. Thick, coppery blood welled between his fingers. Smoke began to fill the cramped compartment, a choking haze swirling with the acrid stench of burning oil and scorched metal. It crept under the commander's collar, bitter against his throat. The coppery taste of blood mingled with the sharp tang of gunpowder and fear. The loader's ragged breaths rattled through the thick haze, each breath a struggle. The commander's boot struck the metal hatch with a harsh clang. His movements were frantic, betraying the panic he fought to suppress. His face, slick with sweat and grime, twisted with a growing dread. The radio was silent, dead. No crackle, no command, no reassurance. The absence was deafening. Every attempt to raise a signal met only with static. The sense of invincibility, once as solid as the tank's armor, shattered in an instant. It was replaced by a raw, hollow awareness. This machine could fail, and with it, their survival. The claustrophobic space seemed to close in tighter, a tomb of steel and smoke. The smell of burnt flesh and oil was omnipresent, a grim reminder of their vulnerability. Orders that had once been crisp and clear now dissolved into instinct. The commander's voice when it came was a hoarse bark, less command, more survival instinct. Each man reacted not as part of a unit, but as a single being desperate to stay alive. The loader pressed his bloodied arm to his chest, eyes wide with pain and disbelief. The driver slumped forward against the controls, unmoving. The gears of the tank creaked and groaned as the vehicle trembled from the hit. The commander's hands were steady despite the chaos, gripping the edge of the hatch as he fought to assess their situation. Around him, the other crew members seemed to move in slow motion, each moment stretched thin by shock. Inside the Tiger, the world had contracted to the size of the interior, the outside battlefield fading to a distant echo. The faint rattle of distant gunfire was muted beneath the constant hiss of escaping steam and the crackle of damaged wiring. The air thickened with dust and smoke, making every breath a battle. Suddenly, the loader's scream cut through the haze again. His face was pale beneath the grime, teeth clenched against the pane. His fingers trembled as he tried to hold the torn flesh together, eyes darting toward the commander for some sign of hope. The commander responded only with a grim nod, his jaw set tight. The driver's limp form shifted slightly, but no response came. The commander's gaze flickered toward him, registering the loss with a flicker of cold acceptance. There was no time for grief, only action. The tank shuddered again, the vibrations a constant reminder of their precarious state. The radio remained dead, the silence oppressive. No orders came from above, no messages from comrades. The isolation was immediate and absolute. The commander's mind raced, but the words to give orders eluded him. The training that had once been automatic now felt distant, replaced by a visceral need to survive. Around them, the metal shell groaned under the strain, every creak and pop a subtle threat. The smell of smoke thickened, stinging eyes and making every movement sluggish. The loader's arm slipped, a fresh trickle of blood pooling against his uniform. His breath hitched as the pain overwhelmed him. The commander kicked the hatch again, desperation sharpening his movements. He glanced at the driver, then the loader, then the narrow slit of the periscope. Outside, the battlefield was still, but the silence was brittle, charged with unseen danger. The sense of control had vanished, replaced by raw instinct and the will to endure. Minutes stretched, each one a battle against the silence, the smoke, and the pain. The commander's voice finally broke the quiet, low and steady despite the pounding in his chest. No formal commands, only the barest instructions to move, to survive, to hold fast until help arrived, or until the end. Inside the battered Tiger, the men were no longer a crew executing orders. They were survivors caught in the fragility of war. The armor that had once promised safety was now just metal, cold and battered. The instinct to live was all that remained. The shattered field lay under a heavy gray sky, the air thick with acrid smoke from burning fuel and scorched earth. A second German tank rolled hesitantly into view, its tracks crunching over broken branches and churned mud. Its turret turned slowly left and right, scanning the ruined landscape for threats, but uncertainty hung on the crew's movements. The tank's engine growled low, almost reluctant. From behind a battered concrete wall, a group of Soviet infantry watched the halted German vehicle with muted relief. Their faces were dirty, eyes wary but alert beneath battered helmets. Though a few raised cautious cheers, they mostly kept their heads down, wary of sudden counterfire. The soldiers shifted uneasily, rifles ready as the smoke curled in thick gray waves around them. The air shimmered with heat and dust, visibility low. The burnt-out carcass of the first Tiger tank stood still, its turret twisted at an unnatural angle. Blackened metal reflected the dull light. The steel hull bore the scars of intense battle, shell holes, splintered armor plates, and scorched paint. Inside, the crew struggled to move, caught in a desperate attempt to evacuate the wreckage. The hatch on the Tiger's rear clanked as a pair of hands pushed it open. The crew inside breathed heavily, their movements slow and labored. One soldier crawled out first, his uniform stained with oil and grime, wincing as he stepped onto the uneven ground. His eyes swept the horizon, calculating the risks. Another followed, dragging a wounded comrade, face pale but determined. Not far behind, the distinctive rumble of an engineer tank approached. Its body was marked with white crosses, and it carried heavy towing cables and repair tools. The crew inside was tense, their faces set in grim lines as they edged closer to the disabled Tiger. The engineer vehicle's tracks cut into the mud, sending clods of earth flying as it settled into position. Silence fell over the immediate battlefield, broken only by the distant staccato of small arms fire and the intermittent boom of artillery far off. The crackling hiss of burning fuel rose sharply, mixing with the scent of scorched rubber and hot metal. The quiet was uneasy, as if the land itself held its breath. The engineer tanks crew through cables carefully over the Tiger's hull, their gloved hands steady despite the danger. They moved quickly but without haste, aware that any mistake could invite sudden attack. The cables scraped against the armor, sparks faint in the smoke-filled air. Near the edge of the wreckage, a medic crawled forward. His uniform bore the red cross clearly. He moved low, head down, lips pressed tightly together as he crept through the debris. The medic paused briefly by a shattered turret hatch, risking a quick glance inside. His eyes met the hollow interior, where overturned seats and tangled gear lay still. The medic reached inside, fingers brushing the cold steel floor as he searched silently for signs of life. His face tightened with concentration, muscles tense beneath the grime. The faintest groan came from within, a quiet reminder of the human cost beneath the roof. Around them, the Soviet infantry remained alert but still. The wind carried the sharp tang of smoke and burning oil, mingled with the faint trace of wet earth. The men's breaths came in shallow rhythms, their fingers twitching near rifle triggers. Despite the momentary lull, the tension in the air was palpable. The engineer tank's driver adjusted the throttle, testing the tension of the cable. The machine shuddered slightly as the crew prepared to tow the damaged Tiger to safety. Outside, the second German tank made a tentative turn, moving slowly backward before disappearing into the haze of smoke and dust. The battlefield held its quiet, broken only by the distant pop of gunfire and the whisper of the wind through shattered trees. The men on both sides were caught in a fragile pause, each aware that the next moment could bring renewed violence. The medic withdrew carefully, signaling to the infantry nearby. Together, they prepared to evacuate the wounded, moving with practiced efficiency under the heavy sky. The engineer tank's crew tightened the cables once more, ready to pull the weight of destruction toward whatever safety remained. In the smoke and silence, the ruins of the Tiger tank stood as a stark reminder of the day's cost. The soldiers, machines, and scorched ground shared a quiet, somber understanding. This was a moment of survival amid relentless conflict. The wreckage of the Tiger tank lay twisted beneath a gray sky, its metal blackened and scarred by fire. Smoke curled upward in slow spirals, mingling with the heavy smell of burnt oil and scorched earth. Around the shattered vehicle, the ground was churned and littered with fragments of shattered armor and debris. A bitter wind stirred dust into the air, stinging the eyes of the men who approached. Two medics crouched near the tank's open hatch, their hands steady despite the chaos. They pulled out the wounded crew one by one, their movements careful but urgent. One soldier, his uniform singed and smeared with soot, was cradled in their arms. His breathing was shallow, uneven, as pain flickered across his furrowed brow. The medic reached for a torn piece of cloth from his kit, dampened it slightly, and pressed it gently against the soldier's cheek. The fabric was stained with blood, dark and sticky. The soldier's eyes fluttered open, glassy and unfocused, trying to register the medic's quiet presence. His lips trembled, attempting words that dissolved into a hoarse whisper, swallowed by the thick haze of smoke and the distant rumble of artillery. Nearby, the German gunner slumped against a broken track, his face burned and swollen. His uniform was loose and singed where flames had licked at his skin. He groaned softly, his head lolling to one side as he fought to stay conscious. When he tried to speak, his voice cracked and faded almost immediately. The medic leaned closer, catching fragments of his broken words, but the syllables were lost in the choked. Without hesitation, the medic reached into his pack and withdrew a canteen. He unscrewed the cap with practiced fingers and offered it silently to the gunner. The wounded man's lips parted sluggishly, and he took a small sip before the medic gently lowered the canteen away. The exchange was wordless but profound, a brief moment of humanity amid destruction. Both men sat back slightly, their bodies shaded by the hulking remains of the tank, a fragile barrier from the surrounding battlefield. For a few fleeting seconds, the noise of war faded to a muted backdrop, the distant thuds of artillery, the crackle of gunfire, the occasional shout carried on the wind. In this fragile pause, the medic's eyes swept over the faces of the injured. The medic's gaze lingered on the gunner's closed eyes, the tight line of his burned mouth. He remembered others like this, faces he could not save, young men frozen forever in fire and mud. His jaw tightened and he looked away, focusing on the task at hand, though the weight of loss pressed heavily on his chest. The soldier whose face he had bandaged shifted slightly, wincing at the pain. The medic's fingers worked quickly to secure the dressing, careful not to cause more harm. Around them, the air remained thick with smoke, the acrid taste of burning rubber and fuel lingering on the tongue. A low moan escaped from the soldier as he tried to push himself upright, but the medic gently pressed him back down. The man's eyes met the medic's. There was a silent understanding in the shared glance, an acknowledgement of their fragile hold on life. The medic reached for a small bottle of disinfectant, its smell sharp and clinical in the smoky air. He dabbed the edges of the bandage, careful not to cause further pain. His hands moved methodically, trained by countless such moments, yet each one carried a fresh weight of urgency and care. The wounded crew members remained quiet, their breaths shallow, their bodies still trembling with shock and exhaustion. The medic could feel their trust, fragile and fleeting, as if it might break with the next explosion or gunshot. For a brief moment, the medic closed his eyes and took a steadying breath. The faces he had seen, the lives lost, all pressed in on him from memory. The young soldier's hopeful glance, the desperate clutch for a comrade's hand. He forced himself to look back at the wounded men, to remain present. The battlefield beyond their shelter was still restless, a constant reminder that this reprieve was temporary. The medic's heart tightened with the knowledge that not all would survive, that loyalty demanded he stay and care, even when hope was thin. He offered the canteen once more to the soldier with the bandaged face, holding it steady as the man drank slowly. The medic's eyes met those of the gunner again, faintly open now, and he gave a slight nod, a silent vow to do what he could in this small corner of the relentless war. The wind shifted, carrying with it the distant sound of marching feet and shouted orders. The medic shifted his weight, readying himself to move, but for a bare moment longer he remained there, anchored by duty, bound by loyalty to the men who had survived fire and smoke, if only to wait for what came next. The morning air was heavy, with the sharp, metallic scent of burnt gunpowder and scorched earth. Ivan's artillery team moved cautiously forward, their boots stirring fine dust from the dry ground. The distant rumble of retreating engines had faded, leaving a brittle silence around the battlefield. Ahead, the shattered remains of the Tiger tank loomed, its once imposing frame twisted and fractured. Blackened metal sprawled across the cracked dirt, a jagged wound splitting the thick armor where the shell had struck. The heat from the explosion still radiated faintly through the air, as if the tank's shell had only recently died. Ivan slowed, every step deliberate, his breath shallow beneath the weight of his helmet. His eyes fixed on the gash, a brutal tear carved into the steel, edges curled outward like torn flesh. His hands trembled as he reached out, fingertips brushing the cold, warped metal where the shell had breached the hull. The surface was rough and splintered, evidence of the overpacked charge that had ripped through. The remnants of the shell's casing lay twisted nearby, half melted and blackened. Ivan's fingers traced the damage slowly, recording the precise angle and depth, a grim testament to the firepower his team had unleashed. Behind him, the low voices of his comrades drifted in the dry wind. Their faces were tight with exhaustion, eyes searching the tank's silent bulk for any sign of movement. But the Tiger was still. No clatter from its turret, no hiss of hydraulic systems, only the hollow groan of metal cooling in the sun. A sharp voice cut through the quiet. "Photograph the kill. Official record." The officer's tone was brisk, carrying over the open field with practiced authority. He raised a camera, the lens glinting in the pale light. Ivan stiffened, a sudden weight settling over his chest. He shook his head in refusal, stepping back from the broken tank. The gesture was small but resolute. The camera lowered slightly, confusion flickering across the officer's face. He said nothing further. Ivan did not explain. No words could fill the space between the wrecked machine and the cost it had claimed. The men inside the Tiger were gone or dying, their lives extinguished beneath layers of shattered steel and smoke. Ivan knew this without needing to look inside. The silence from the tank was deeper than the absence of sound. It was the stillness of death. His eyes drifted from the torn side of the tank to the ground surrounding it. Scattered fragments of personal belongings caught the sunlight, a cracked compass, a scorched leather glove, a faded photograph curling at the edges. These traces spoke in quiet whispers of men who had hoped for survival. Ivan's victory, though marked by the destruction of a formidable enemy, felt hollow. The kill was not a triumph, but a solemn moment etched with loss. The pride in duty was shadowed by the weight of loyalty, to comrades lost, to the burden of war carried silently by every soldier. He lowered his gaze, the dust rising beneath his boots as the team prepared to move on. Around them, the battlefield remained scarred, the air thick with the residue of battle and the unspoken cost of each victory. The shattered Tiger lay still, a monument not to glory, but to the quiet demands of loyalty and the somber resolve of those left behind. Night had fully settled over the battered tank and the scarred field. The sky was a dark canvas, pierced only by faint stars dimmed by distant gunfire. Ivan sat on the cold metal floor of the turret, the faint hiss of settling machinery around him. His hands moved methodically, scraping and wiping the barrel and bolt of the main gun. The oil smelled sharp, mixing with the faint dust of dry earth carried inside the tank. The rest of the crew was quiet, spread out in shadowed corners of the vehicle or crouched nearby. Their voices, when they spoke, were low and hesitant, as if careful to disturb a fragile peace. They talked about home, small details of fields back in the villages, the scent of fresh bread baking, the sound of children playing near the river. Their words floated in the cramped space, thin as smoke, barely filling the silence. No one mentioned the shell that had jammed, the one packed beyond safety, the one that had slipped from cautious hands to reckless weight. It was a quiet omission, like a secret carried but unspoken, heavy in the space between words. The silence around it pressed down, thicker than the grime covering the tank's worn steel. The loader, his face pale and drawn, tried to find rest in the cramped corner where he sat. His breath came slow, uneven, as he fought against exhaustion. Yet every time his eyes closed, the faces of the Tiger crew returned, etched with surprise, fear, and something unspoken. Their eyes stared from the darkness, windows into a moment frozen in time. He blinked, opened his eyes, but the images lingered, shadows refusing to fade. The officer sat apart, a small wooden table balanced awkwardly on the uneven ground outside the tank. Flickering candlelight cast long shadows over his paper as his pen moved steadily across the page. He wrote the report for command, the neat script a contrast to the chaos around him. The lines detailed the patrol, the engagement, the damage sustained. There was no mention of the accident. The words flowed as omission, an invisible draft in the official record. Inside the tank, the air grew heavy with unspoken tension. The men listened to the distant crackle of radio transmissions, the soft rustle of gear shifting in the dark. Exhaustion weighed on them, but so did the burden of silence. It filled every corner, a presence larger than any one of them. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, scattering dry leaves across the ground. The faint smell of smoke lingered, a reminder of the battle's recent violence. The tank's engine, cold now, was a silent beast waiting for dawn. Ivan paused his cleaning, resting his hands on the gun's cold metal. He stared into the darkness beyond the hatch, the blackness pressing close. Memories of the day's fight flickered behind his eyes, the rattle of shells, the shouts of the crew, the sudden halt when the shell jammed. He swallowed hard but said nothing. The loader shifted again, drawing his knees close, his gaze fixed on the hatch above. He traced the shape of the tank's interior with his eyes, seeking comfort in the familiar angles. But the faces he saw were not of his comrades, but of the enemy's crew, caught in the same moment of confusion and fear. The officer folded the report, tucking it carefully into the leather folder. He looked up, meeting Ivan's eyes through the hatch. No words passed between them. The night carried their shared understanding, loyalty to the crew, duty to the command, and the weight of what was left unsaid. The other men huddled closer, voices fading entirely as sleep finally claimed some. The quiet deepened, interrupted only by the soft creak of metal cooling and the distant sound of watchful footsteps. In the darkness, the tank was both a refuge and a prison. It held them together, enclosed and isolated, bound by their shared purpose and the silence of the night. No one spoke of the overpacked shell. It lay buried beneath layers of routine and protocol, a secret held tightly in the shadows. The night absorbed it, and with it the heavy stillness grew, waiting for dawn's uncertain light. The morning sun rose pale and steady over the scarred field, casting long shadows from shattered trees and twisted metal. A German burial detail moved slowly through the debris, their boots crunching on dry earth and scattered shell casings. The air was still, heavy with dust and the faint, acrid scent of burned oil. Their faces were somber, eyes fixed on the ground, as they gathered the fallen comrades of the night before. The men worked with practiced efficiency, yet their movements were subdued, slow, as if weighed down by the weight of loss. Each body was carefully wrapped in canvas, the rough fabric already stained by dirt and blood. The soldiers lowered the silent forms into shallow graves dug hastily, but with respect, the dry soil muffling the dull thuds. A thin wind stirred dust across the gravesites, carrying away the faint echoes of distant gunfire. Near the graves, a chaplain stood apart, his black uniform stark against the dusty landscape. His lips moved quietly, reciting prayers in a low murmur as his hands clutched a small, worn Bible. His voice was barely audible, blending with the low whistle of the wind through broken branches. The chaplain's eyes were closed, his features drawn tight, betraying a fatigue deeper than the physical. He paused occasionally, bowing his head to the ground, as if seeking solace from the earth itself. Beyond the burial detail, the battered hull of the Tiger tank lay exposed to the sun. Its heavy armor was scorched and bent, the turret jagged where an explosion had torn through. The metal gleamed dully, a cold and silent monument to the violence that had raged just hours before. The tank's empty, shattered interior was a hollow cave of twisted steel and shattered glass, a stark warning to any who might approach. The machine, once a symbol of strength, now seemed to embody the fragility of war. A short distance away, a small group of Soviet soldiers stood motionless, their faces grim and unreadable. Their uniforms were dusty and torn, their rifles slung loosely across their back. They maintained a cautious distance from the German burial detail, but did not attempt to move or speak. The smoke from their evening campfires had long since faded, leaving only the soft rustle of dry grass and distant bird calls. For a moment, the two sides shared the same space without hostility. The Soviet soldiers' eyes flicked briefly toward the graves, then lowered, as if acknowledging a shared sorrow too deep for words. The German soldiers, in turn, remained focused on their grim task, but the presence of the enemy nearby was an unspoken reminder of the fragile boundary between life and death. The front line, usually a place of noise and chaos, was quiet. No distant artillery boomed, no rifles cracked. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The war, relentless and brutal, suspended itself for those few minutes in the dawn light. The soldiers on both sides felt, if only briefly, the weight of loss and the hollow ache of disbelief. A German soldier paused beside a fresh grave, his gloved hand resting lightly on the wooden cross. His jaw clenched as he stared down, eyes shadowed beneath his helmet. Nearby, a Soviet soldier shifted his weight uncomfortably, glancing toward the burial detail before looking away. Neither spoke. Their silence was filled with the unspoken truths of sacrifice and survival. The chaplain's prayers ended, and he opened his eyes slowly. He reached into his coat pocket, withdrawing a small crucifix, which he held up as he looked out across the field. The gesture was quiet, personal, a symbol of faith amid the room. The soldiers took it in, some bowing their heads briefly, others simply watching. Slowly, the burial detail finished their work. They stood together for a moment, shoulders squared against the chill of the morning air. Their eyes traveled over the field, to the ruined tank, to the graves and the watching enemy. Without a word, they turned and began to retreat toward their lines, their footsteps stirring the dust once more. The Soviet soldiers watched them leave, their expressions unreadable beneath weary eyes. The field remained still, the harsh light revealing every scar and every shad. The war continued, relentless and unforgiving, but here, in this quiet moment, two sides had touched the same grief. As the sun climbed higher, the silence was broken only by the distant call of a lone bird. The front resumed its endless rhythm, but the memory of this pause lingered in the dust, in the stones, in the hollow shell of the Tiger tank, a somber testament to loyalty and loss amid the endless tide of war. The morning air hung heavy with smoke and cold moisture as news of the shell's impact traveled through the Soviet camp. Officers gathered in small groups, voices low but charged with a mix of pride and disbelief. The command post buzzed with activity, radios crackling with reports of the Tiger's unexpected disablement. The shell, they said, had found its mark where none expected. In the shadowed corner of a makeshift office, Ivan sat silent, his uniform dust-streaked and stained from the fight. His hands rested on the table, steady but tense. Officers approached, their questions sharp and probing, but he answered only with measured silence. His eyes, dark and tired, held no hint of triumph or regret. The weight of the moment pressed heavily upon him. Rumors began to weave through the ranks like the early morning mist. Some argued the shell had been overpacked, that the charge was heavier than standard issue. The talk was hushed but fervent. Some called it a remarkable stroke of luck, others whispered of sabotage within their own supply lines. The uncertainty unsettled even the most hardened men. Across the field, captured German soldiers exchanged glances when the news reached them. The Tiger's reputation, once a symbol of near invincibility, now bore a crack. The men who had trusted their lives to the machine faced it with a new wariness, the armor no longer an absolute shield. Quiet conversations questioned what armor could truly protect against fate and fire. The command structure moved swiftly. Orders were issued to inspect every shell, every casing, every charge. Ammunition was scrutinized under the dim light of lanterns. Soldiers, fingers probing for flaws, cracks, anything out of place. Yet the unease lingered. The battlefield had shifted, and so too had the understanding of risk. Men on both sides wrestled with the meaning of courage. Where once a tank could advance with confident thunder, now hesitation crept in. The line between bravery and recklessness blurred under the shadow of fragile luck. Faces in the trenches and behind guns showed the strain of this new reality. Even the landscape seemed altered by the uncertainty. The blackened earth bore fresh scars from shell and flame, silent witnesses to a battle where certainty had fractured. Dust settled slowly, carrying away the sharp scent of gunpowder but leaving behind the residue of doubt. Ivan remained apart, his gaze distant as he absorbed the shifting tides of command and morale. Loyalty to duty held firm in his chest, though unspoken questions gnawed beneath the surface. The simple truth hovered in the cold air. On this battlefield, nothing was certain. The officers' voices rose and fell as they debated next steps, the clatter of reports and maps spreading across tables. Each decision weighed heavy, informed by the fragile balance between armor, ammunition, and the unpredictable hand of fate. As daylight waned, the soldiers prepared for what would come next. New shells were checked with care, tanks polished and readied, yet the silence between movements spoke volumes. The war pressed on, unchanged in its demand but forever altered in its risk. In that quiet moment, the men understood the fragile nature of survival. The Tiger, once a towering force, was now a reminder that no machine or man was invincible. Duty bound them still, but loyalty to life itself lingered in their thoughts. The battlefield held its breath, awaiting the next clash where armor met fire, courage met chance, and the uncertain truth of war revealed itself again. The shattered hull of the Tiger tank rested silently in the scorched earth near Kursk, a dark monument to sudden misfortune. Burned metal twisted against a sky thick with smoke and the faint smell of spent gunpowder. The silence around it was heavier than the thunder that had roared moments before. For Ivan and the men who served aboard, that ruined machine became a stark reminder of fragility beneath the armor's cold strength. Whispers spread among survivors, tracing the accident's details with a mix of disbelief and caution. The overpacked shell case, an error in preparation, had transformed a weapon of war into a fragile coffin. The myth of the invulnerable Tiger tank was broken in an instant, leaving no room for pride or denial. It was no longer just about tactics or firepower, but about the unpredictable dangers of survival on a shifting battlefield. The crew's faces, marked by soot and exhaustion, held traces of the day's calamity that words could not erase. Their loyalty to one another endured beyond the loss of metal and machinery. In the chaos of war, every movement could mean the difference between life and death. The line between hunter and hunted blurred beneath the relentless pressure of enemy fire and mechanical failure. As the front moved forward, the burned wreck remained behind, a scar in the land and in memory. Soldiers passing nearby lowered their eyes, recognizing the silent lesson etched deep into the ground. No armor, no matter how formidable, could guarantee safety or survival. Each man was exposed when the shells flew, each moment a choice made in the shadow of uncertainty. Long after the smoke cleared, the story of the destroyed Tiger lingered. It was a quiet testament to the cost of war, the vulnerability hidden beneath strength, and the burden of duty carried by those who fought. The battlefield moved on, but the lesson remained. In war, loyalty is tested not only by courage, but by the fragile threads that hold life together amid destruction.